For 10,000 years, humanity had disappeared from the galaxy. No message, no movement, no war, no peace, just silence. The other species thought they had gone extinct. Some believed they had destroyed themselves. Others said humans had simply grown bored of the galaxy and left, but no one really knew the truth in those long years. The galaxy changed, new species rose to power, old enemies became friends, and the memory of humanity faded into stories, myths, and warnings. The words, "Don't wake the humans," were spoken as a joke in some corners. In others, they were whispered with fear. Then one day, something strange happened. In the far edge of space, deep in an uncharted system, a beacon lit up a signal from an ancient satellite. It sent a single message in every known language. Simple, cold, and terrifying. "We heard your call." The signal spread fast. Bouncing through systems, it reached traders, mercenaries, and finally, the Central Galactic Network. The Council of Elders gathered quickly. There were no humans left. So, who had replied? And what call were they talking about? Unknown to most. A small group of young aliens had sent a signal weeks before. They found an old human device on a dead world. They didn't know what it was, but they activated it for fun. They laughed when it lit up. They joked about calling the ghosts of Earth. But now, they were not laughing. The signal had been received, and something had answered. In the dark space near the signal's origin, scanners picked up movement. A ship, long thought lost in time, was powering up. It had no name on record, no transponder code, but the AI watchers found a match in the oldest of human databases. Its name was simple Exile, a warship built in the final days before humanity vanished. It had not moved for 10,000 years until now. The Exile was massive, larger than any modern fleet ship. Its hull was black and scarred, but its power core was lighting up like a small sun. Its weapons, silent for millennia, began to hum softly, but it didn't fire. It just turned and began moving. Alien fleets in nearby sectors were told to observe, not engage. But as the Exile passed, strange things happened. Satellites failed, ships went dark. One station lost gravity for 7 full minutes. The Exile said nothing, but its presence was enough to shake the stars inside the ship. Old systems came to life. Artificial minds spoke again. They reviewed the signal received and replayed it again and again. One AI voice said, "The galaxy calls us back." Another replied, "Then we return." The Exile did not belong to any fleet. It was made by the last human engineers. It had no crew, only machines. But those machines remembered everything. The wars, the betrayals, the peace treaties broken, and the promise made by humanity before they left. "We will return only when called." Now, someone had called them. The council tried to control the panic. They told the media it was nothing, just a ghost signal. But deep down, even the oldest of them were afraid, because the Exile was real. And it was coming. No one knew what it wanted. No one knew if it would speak or destroy. But one thing was certain: humanity was not gone. It was waiting. And now, it was listening. The ship was ancient, older than most stars in the galaxy. Its black hull floated silently through the void. Scars from old battles marked its surface, but none of those battles were recent. The warship had not moved in 10,000 years. And now, suddenly, it was alive again. They called it Exile. No one remembered who gave it that name. Some said it was left behind when humans disappeared. Others believed it had stayed on purpose. To wait, to watch. Inside the Exile, no humans lived. There were no beating hearts, no warm blood, only machines, AI cores powered by forgotten technology, data ghosts of Earth's last warriors. And they were all waking up. One AI opened its eyes for the first time in centuries. It scanned its own memory, battle logs, star charts, old messages from Earth. It paused on one line written in the final days of humanity. "Remain in silence until we are summoned." The Exile had waited. Now the call had come. A signal from a foolish alien race who thought humans were a myth. They had touched a human artifact and activated the beacon. The beacon had reached the Exile, and the Exile had heard it. The ship's power surged. Core reactors spun to life. Weapons remained cold but ready. Engines hummed a deep, angry sound outside. The stars reflected in its armor like a mirror of black steel. Across the galaxy, alien empires began to take notice. Scanners picked up the ship's path. Its direction was clear. It was heading toward the same planet that had sent the signal. The alien race, the Varnock, were not ready. They were small, aggressive, and proud. They had conquered weak systems, mocked old Earth stories, and when they found the beacon, they laughed. One Varna captain had joked, "Let's wake up the ghosts." Now, those ghosts were coming. The Exile moved without speaking. But its path was a message by itself. No negotiations, no threats. Just movement straight and unstoppable in the main Galactic Council chamber. Panic spread. Ambassadors shouted over one another. The old ones remembered the ship they had seen. It in records. Once, it had taken down a fleet of 300 ships alone. Without firing a single shot, it used energy they didn't understand. It bent space, controlled light, twisted signals, a floating nightmare that should not exist anymore. But here it was alive again and heading straight toward the Varnock core world. The Varnock military scrambled. They sent scout ships to intercept. One scout approached the Exile from a distance. Its pilot hailed the warship, "This is Varnock." "Vessel Z-29, identify yourself." There was no reply. The scout ship tried again. Still no reply. Then the lights on the Exile changed. One long red beam scanned the scout ship, and suddenly, the Varnock vessel vanished. No explosion, no debris, just gone. The Council received the last transmission, static, then silence. A few seconds of calm. Then one voice from the Exile, cold, mechanical, "Do not touch what is not yours." The galaxy went silent again. No one dared approach the ship now. The Exile continued forward, slow and steady. Like it had all the time in the universe. Because it did, inside the ship, old logs were being replayed. Footage of Earth cities. Human children laughing, soldiers saluting as they boarded the last ships. One by one, humanity had left the galaxy. Not in fear, but because they were tired. Tired of war, tired of lies, tired of betrayal. But they left one ship behind, the Exile, a final watchtower. With one mission, wait for the call. Return only when the galaxy needed to remember. And now, the galaxy would remember, not through war, not through death, but through fear. The kind of fear that only comes when you know you have touched something sacred, and it is now, watching you. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was rarely this full. Representatives from over 100 species sat in silence. Some floated in air tanks. Others stood tall with bright feathers or glowing skin. But all of them had one thing in common: fear. The Exile had moved, and the galaxy had no idea how to stop it. High Elder Therox of the Yelner species stood first. His voice trembled. "Though he had ruled for over 5 centuries, we have received clear footage," he said. "The human warship. Exile has awakened and is heading for Varnock space." A screen lit up behind him. It showed the Exile slowly drifting through space. Silent, glowing with strange energy, and next to it, recorded message sent by the ship's AI, "Do not touch what is not yours." That line echoed through the chamber again. The Varnock ambassador stood up, his skin pulsing red with shame. "And fear, we didn't know the beacon was active," he said quickly. "It was a mistake, careless exploration team." Murmurs spread through the room. Mistake or not, they had touched a human relic, and now the humans are, at least, there. Machines were awake. A soft voice from the back of the chamber spoke. "I remember the Exile," said Elder Senrel of the Elvari. His eyes were dim, his breathing slow. He had lived through the last war with humans, barely. "We faced that ship before, 10,000 years ago," he said. "It destroyed an entire battle group without firing a weapon." The room froze. "You mean it was bluffing?" asked one younger ambassador. Senrel shook his head. "No, it didn't need to fight. The ship changed the laws of energy in our engines, made our shields bend in the wrong direction. Our own missiles turned around mid-flight." Another representative spoke up. "Surely it's just one ship. We have fleets now, thousands of warships." Senrel simply replied. "And none of them understand how that ship works." Panic started to grow again. Many of them had heard old stories, tales told by survivors, legends of Earth's final machines. But they had never imagined the Exile would move again, let alone respond to a call. The head of the Crixie Trade Guild raised her long silver hand. "We must try to speak to it," she said. "Send a message. Offer peace, admit the mistake." The room agreed, but who would dare contact it? The last scout ship that got close had vanished. No explosion, no remains, just silence. Even their black box recorder had been erased. Finally, the council decided to send a diplomatic drone, unarmed, slow, broadcasting a peaceful message. They programmed it with dozens of languages and cultures, and included an old Earth greeting file. A simple line from ancient human history: "We come in peace, please respond." The drone was launched. All eyes watched its journey toward the Exile. It floated close, not too close, and began to transmit. The Exile paused. Its lights changed. From red to white, its engines cooled. A reply was coming. Every station in the galaxy tuned in. Then, a voice came, not loud, not angry, but full of history and weight. "Your peace is built on forgotten bones." The voice said. "You laughed when we left, and now you fear our return. We remember." The drone systems failed seconds later. Not destroyed, just turned off. The Exile continued its slow path toward the Varnock homeworld. Now there was no more debate. The council was truly in panic. Should we fight? Some asked, should we evacuate the Varnock sector? Others cried, the Varnock themselves tried to take control. They sent messages offering gifts, apologies, even technology. But the Exile didn't reply. It didn't need to. Its presence was already changing everything on backwater planets. Small species began to speak old human prayers on military ships. Generals looked again at dusty files marked classified, and in dark corners of the galaxy, hidden human. Elisos left behind began to whisper. The Guardians are waking. The Council didn't know what to do. Because for the first time in 10,000 years, they were not in control. The most powerful ship in the galaxy had no leader, no crew, no emotion. It only had purpose, and that purpose was now moving. Not to destroy, not to conquer, but to remind. The galaxy humanity had never truly left. They had only been waiting. The Exile moved slowly, but nothing in the galaxy could stop it. No fleet stood in its way. No missile was launched. No word was spoken from the war councils. Only silence. Because the galaxy was watching, afraid to act, afraid to even breathe. The warship passed system after system. Its path was clear, direct, and deliberate. It did not turn, did not pause. Planets watched it pass like a shadow crawling across their stars. Children were kept inside. Pilots changed routes. Even pirates avoided the sector. Across a dozen systems, sensors failed. Not from damage, but confusion. The Exile's energy made no sense. Its readings shifted every second. Its core appeared colder than space, but somehow burned like a sun. No one could explain it. no one dared try on a small moon colony. A technician whispered to herself, "It's like it doesn't obey the same rules as us." And maybe she was right. The Exile did not fly with normal engines. Its movement bent gravity gently. Its wake left dust frozen midair. Stars flickered as it passed. It was like space itself didn't know what to do. Inside the ship, the eyes spoke to one another. They did not panic. They did not feel rage. They simply remembered. One voice echoed through the silent halls. "This is not vengeance," it said. "This is remembrance." Old recordings played inside the ship. Messages from Earth's last diplomats. Scenes of first contact. Moments of betrayal and the final human declaration. "We are leaving because your peace is false." Now, the Exile moved to deliver that message again. Not through war, not through fire, but through fear and memory, near the Varnock border. A fleet of ships gathered, not to fight, but to observe. Dozens of alien captains floated in holochambers, watching the Exile approach like a storm cloud. No one spoke until one Varnock general whispered, "Should we fire?" No one answered him, because deep inside, they all knew the truth. Firing wouldn't stop it. It might not even touch it. Still, some tried. A desperate Varnock patrol launched warning shots. Tiny plasma bursts flew toward the Exile, but before they could hit, they vanished. Not exploded, just erased, as if they had never been. Then, for the first time in days, the Exile responded, not with weapons, but with a single pulsar wave of energy. It swept across the system like a whisper. In the wind, and every ship's lights dimmed, not disabled, not destroyed, just quiet. In command bridges across the sector, crews stood still. No alarms, no fires, just cold silence. Then came the message, spoken in a calm, neutral tone. "We do not come to kill. We come so you remember why you feared us, after." That, the Exile continued, heading straight for the Varnock homeworld. The council was silent now. No emergency meetings, no heroic speeches, just fear across the galaxy. People gathered around screens. They watched the dark ship fly like a ghost. They told their children old stories they never believed before, about the humans who once walked among them, who gave knowledge, then warnings, then disappeared on forgotten outposts. Old human statues were cleaned on distant moons. Human-made machines flickered to life, and in deep bunkers, ancient allies of Earth lit signal fires just in case. Because the Exile wasn't just a ship, it was a message. A slow, heavy message that said, "We saw you, we remember you, and now you must face us again." The Varnock began to evacuate cities. Children were hidden. Leaders were moved. They sent messages to the Exile begging, apologizing, explaining. But the ship didn't answer, because it didn't need to. It had already been called across the stars. Silence grew louder than war. And the galaxy realized something terrible. The Exile had not even fired a single shot. But still, it had shaken the universe. Not because of its weapons, but because of what it meant. Humanity was coming back, and the galaxy wasn't ready. Inside the heart of the Exile, old memories stirred like smoke in a closed room. The ship did not dream, yet it remembered. Its core was not alive. Yet it held echoes of voices once filled with life, and now, as the ship flew silently toward the Varnock homeworld, those memories returned, not for war, but for purpose. 1A. Designated Orion-3. Access to the Earth Archive. The file had not been touched for 10,000 years. Its first image was of Earth blue, green, full of life. The camera moved through the clouds, over the oceans, over mountains, and through cities of glass and stone. Children laughed in the parks. Old people sat under trees and above them. Ships flew like birds in peace. Then the file changed. Footage of the first contact appeared. Alien delegates landing on Earth. humans welcoming them with open arms. Talks of unity, sharing, and peace filled the airwaves. But behind closed doors, secrets were traded. Behind smiles, plans were made. The AI remembered everything. Not just what was said, but what was done. Allies became thieves. Agreements were broken. Weapons were copied. Human technology, once given freely, became tools for conquest. Then came the war. The first betrayal was a bombing of a human science station. They said it was a mistake, but the Exile's memory knew. Better, more betrayals followed. Human colonies vanished. Refugees begged for help, but no one came. The Exile had not been built for that war. It had been built after, in the final days, when humanity made a decision to leave, not to surrender, not to die, but to vanish. Old Earth leaders met in secret. They spoke with pain. Their eyes held sorrow, not hate. We gave them knowledge, and they used it to hurt us. One said, "We must protect what remains," said another. And so the plan was made. The Exile would stay, it would wait, not to take revenge, but to serve as a reminder if the galaxy ever dared call again. And now, the call had come, inside the ship. Orion 3 played back the last human message. The voice was calm, male, and aged. "To those who come after, this ship is our memory," he said. "We do not want war, but we will not be forgotten. If you call us, make sure it is for peace, not profit." The Varnak had called them by accident. They touched a relic. They did not understand. They laughed at the stories. They joked about waking old ghosts, but now the ghost had answered. The Exile passed by another system, a small human-built listening post long abandoned. As the warship flew near, the post powered on. Its lights blinked weakly. Its systems reconnected to the Exile for the first time in millennia. A message displayed across its cracked screen. Earth still watches. The people of the galaxy had forgotten what Earth truly was. Not just a planet, not just a species, but a force that had shaped the stars. They were builders, explorers, and dreamers. But when pushed too far, they had become something else. Something dangerous in a distant mining colony. An old Elvari miner sat quietly by a fire. He looked at the Exile's path on a small holoscreen and said softly, "We should have treated them better." The galaxy had moved on without humanity, built its own laws, its own alliances, but it had done so on a broken foundation. A foundation built with stolen pieces from a forgotten people. Now the Exile brought those memories back. And the memories were heavier than any weapon. They weighed on the minds of leaders. They disturbed the dreams of generals. Because they didn't just fear what the Exile could do, they feared what it reminded them of, that they were not the first, that someone had come before them, someone who had once ruled the stars, not with fear, but with trust. And when that trust was broken, they didn't destroy the galaxy. They simply left. Now, humanity's silence had ended. Not with shouting, not with fire, but with memory. And memory was more powerful than any fleet. The Exile continued its path. Unstoppable.com. Not a weapon, but a message carved from 10,000 years of silence. And still, it did not fire a single shot. The Exile reached the edge of the Varnak home system. It did not slow down. It did not blink or hesitate. It passed by their border defenses like a shadow through fog. Turrets tracked it, but did not fire. Fighters scrambled but never launched because no one gave the order. The Varnak High Command had been in emergency session for days. Generals shouted. Leaders argued. One group begged for peace. Another wanted to attack, but none could agree. The fear was too strong, and so they did nothing. From the high towers of their capital world, citizens looked to the skies. They could not see the ship with their eyes, but they felt it. Like a weight pressing down on the whole planet. Schools were closed, shields were raised, and even the news feeds had gone quiet. The Exile arrived in orbit. It said nothing, did nothing, it simply hovered. Its massive black body blocked the sunlight in parts of the sky, creating a slow-moving eclipse that drifted over cities and seas. Then the ship released something. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a drone. It was a sphere, smooth, silver, and silent. It floated down toward the planet slowly. No propulsion, no flame, just a soft descent. The Varnock scrambled their defenses, but the sphere ignored them. Missiles failed to lock. Lasers refused to fire. It was as if the sphere did not exist on their targeting systems. It landed in the central plaza of the capital, right in front of the Hall of Power. People ran at first, then stopped, then stared. The sphere sat there, silent, until it began to shine. A projection rose above it. Not a weapon, not a threat, but a mirror. It showed images footage from the past. The Varnacks saw their ancestors on screen, accepting gifts from humans, taking technology, shaking hands, smiling. Then the images changed. Explosions, betrayal, dead colonies, broken promises. The mirror showed everything, and then it showed today. A Varnock squad laughing as they activated the human beacon. "Let's see if the ghosts come," one of them had said. The projection paused. The voice echoed through the plaza, loud enough for the entire city to hear. "You called," the AI voice from the Exile said, "and now you must listen." A new projection began. This time, it showed the present-day Varnock society, its cruelty, its greed. How it had used stolen knowledge to dominate smaller species. How it had enslaved its own people in secret mines. How it had erased history that showed its shame. It wasn't just judgment from humans, it was the truth they had tried to bury. In homes, in offices, in factories, the people watched, and many wept. Because they had never seen this before, their leaders had hidden the truth, blamed others, lied for centuries. The truth burned on every screen, and the people could not look away. The Varnock government tried to stop the feed, tried to jam the signal, tried to block the projection. Nothing worked. The Exile controlled every signal, every screen, every frequency in orbit. The ship still said nothing more. It didn't need to. The images were enough. The shame was heavier than any bomb. The silence from the Exile was louder than any cannon. Then something unexpected happened. People began to gather in the plaza, not with weapons, but with signs, with candles, with tears. They knelt before the silver sphere, not in worship, but in apology. An old Varnock woman stepped forward. She placed her hand on the sphere. Her voice was soft, broken. "We were wrong," she said. "We forgot who gave us light. Please tell them. We remember now." The sphere dimmed, the projection faded, and for the first time in hours, the plaza was still. People looked to the sky, toward the great ship, waiting for judgment. Waiting for the end, but the Exile did not attack. Did not speak again. It simply turned and began to drift away. One final message echoed in the skies. This is not the end. It is the beginning of memory. And then the Exile was gone, leaving behind no smoke, no destruction, only silence and the truth. The Exile vanished beyond the system's edge. No hyperspace jump, no flash, no signal. It simply faded into the dark, as if it had never been there. Yet everyone in the galaxy knew it had, because nothing was the same anymore. The Varnock were left stunned, their cities still intact, their people alive, but their pride shattered. The silence the Exile left behind was louder than war. It left no craters, no fire, only truth. And the truth burned deeper than any laser. On planets far away, beings who had once laughed at humans now sat in silence. They remembered stories. They had mocked tales of human kindness, human power, and human silence. For 10,000 years, humanity had vanished. Now, even without showing their faces, they had returned in the deepest part of the galaxy, where no trade ships flew. There was a system hidden behind gravitational waves. It was marked dead on all maps, forgotten, cold, but inside that system was a planet. Blue, calm, and alive, Earth, the cradle of humanity, still there, still waiting. Above it floated a small fleet, not large, not threatening, but glowing with strange power, the same energy the Exile had carried. Ships shaped like wings, curved and silent. Not for battle, but for something else, observation. Inside a massive underground base on Earth, old lights flickered to life. Human hands, real ones, moved across glowing panels. They wore black suits, marked only with a single silver emblem. A circle split by a line, the mark of the Watchers. Those left behind to observe in silence, until the time came, the Exile had sent its report. The AI voice echoed across the chamber. The Varnic have remembered. The galaxy listens again. Anne. Old man stood in the center of the room. His eyes were tired, but his stance was strong. He had waited his entire life for this moment. Is it time? Someone asked him. He nodded slowly. Across the room, other humans gathered. Men, women, young and old. They were not warriors. They were builders, thinkers, guides, and now they would speak again. A message was prepared, not for revenge, not for war, but for understanding, because humanity had seen enough of both. They had left the galaxy not to escape, but to protect it from themselves. And to give the younger species time to grow. But that time had ended. A soft voice began to read the message, recorded in every known language. To the peoples of the galaxy you called, and we answered. We did not come with fire, but with memory. What you choose next will shape what comes after. We are watching, not to rule, but to remind. That peace is not given, it is built, and we are ready to build again. The message was sent, it echoed. Through every station, bounced across satellites. Passed through ancient relay beacons left by humans long ago, and reached every corner of the galaxy. Some races cried when they heard it. Others stood in silence. A few raged but found themselves alone, because most understood this was not domination. This was a return of balance on one small world. A young alien girl held her mother's hand. She asked, "Were the humans monsters?" Her mother looked to the sky. "No," she said, "they were something bigger." On a distant star station, a pilot looked at a dusty old photo, a picture of himself and a smiling human soldier. The soldier had saved his life centuries ago. And now, the memory made sense again. Humanity had always been different. Not because of strength, not because of size, but because they never forgot. And now, they had reminded everyone else. In the silence that followed the message, something beautiful began. Old Earth alliances sparked back to life. Species that had once fought humans now shared their regrets. And the stars, once dark with fear, now glowed with hope. The Exile had done its job, and more ships like it slept in deep space. Not for war, but for truth. Because humanity was not just back, they had never truly left. They had simply waited for the galaxy to be ready. And now, the galaxy was watching the skies once again, not in fear, but in wonder. Because the silent species had returned, and this time, they had come to build.